All right, go ahead and get us started, Ryan.
Wonderful. So, today we're going to be going over navigating the holiday circus for the Christmas holidays, New Year holidays, really any time of the year. And what we're trying to help everyone with today is kind of being a little bit more aware and understanding about the problematic relationships that might start around this time of year, or even perhaps how some stressful things might happen and how we can be aware of it happening, get ourselves out of the situation, and mitigate, honestly, some unnecessary stress in our lives. Whether it's your Christmas shopping timeline, your family, your work, we're going to talk all about that today.
Absolutely. All right, well, I'll start with me. My name is Terrance Findley. I'm a criminologist, a former criminal profiler. I dedicate my life to basically finding all the ways that problematic people interact with others and to try to see the tactics that they use to harm other individuals. So we're going to be going through certain types of sociopathic behavior here, especially behavior that really includes the manipulation that takes place during the loneliness and stressors of the holiday season. Because these next months, this month, leading all the way to February, you're going to see often massive increases in relative sociopathic behavior, as well as people trying to enter your lives from your past. That often happens when the new year starts and people start doing what is called boomeranging or rebounding and trying to figure out, okay, who's somebody that I used to know back in the day, or who's somebody that I was used to able to exploit. Let me see if I can exploit that person, as well as looking out for people that might try to enter your life under false pretenses. Okay, Ryan?
And I'm Ryan, relationship engineer by trade. And what I really like to help people with is understanding the mechanisms of how things go wrong and how we can better structure our lives to get through it, whether it's stressful times, building the life we want, recognizing the specific areas that we need to fix, or the specific people that are really helping us that we're overlooking, and the specific people that are harming us that we're also overlooking, and really get through it. And I really love partnering with Terrance because we have two very different but compatible and comparable professional viewpoints on how to put all of this together to help everyone. So, the first thing we want to talk about, what is it, Terrance?
Is welcome to more relationship profiling.
Exactly.
So, what we are really wanting to look at is the impact that other people have on the environment around them. Now, we can call them sociopaths, you can call them narcissists. Unless we're making research papers, I don't think terms are terribly useful. What I want to look at is people that have a problematic impact on our lives, even if they don't reach the level of being classified as a sociopath, psychopath, narcissist. If they have a negative impact on your life, we need to figure out why, what are the tactics they use, how did they get into our lives, and what's the best way to remove them from our lives. All right, we can go to the next slide. So the reference material for today, I have the book Games People Play, Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, as well as my personal book, How to Choose a Man, a Criminologist's Guide. So all of these go hand in hand with profiling. Um, Anything you want to add on that one? Because I think that's pretty cut and dry right there, Ryan.
Nope, I think they're really good. Just a quick summary, right? A lot of what we reference goes back to the games that people play. When people are not direct, when they're indirect, when they're passive aggressive, or when they're manipulative, or when it's a social practice that you may not be aware of, and things aren't going well in our relationship between employers, families, friends, acquaintances. That's really what the Games People Play book talks about a lot. And I really think it's an important read for everyone. And it's not to look around you and try and see how everyone around you has to be manipulative. It's really just to be more aware of what is going on and not to label it necessarily. Like Terrance said, labels aren't that important. It's whether we want to play that game or not. And if we don't know we're in a game that's being played, it's very hard to win. So it gives us more of awareness to understand, is there something going on here that I'm not recognizing? And once I recognize it, I can decide to play that game or not. And one of the reasons why the book that we put out is so important is it gives you a little bit practical steps of, I'm not going to play certain games. I'm going to do this instead that's going to help me out.
Very true. Okay, so if you already have a copy of the book, How to Choose Man, we are starting on chapter 5, page 41. And what we're doing is we're talking about the language of manipulation. And I never forgot this quote from an entrepreneur I know. He said, "We hire our own problems." So for the individuals that we voluntarily bring in our lives, the thing to remember is we can voluntarily remove them from our lives as well. And a lot of times, what we engage in is this sunk cost fallacy, where we look at the good times we've had with them, not the projection of where we're headed in in our lives. Not that they haven't been a good person for us lately, and they don't appear to be a good person for us going forward. So, what we want to ask ourselves, and this is when I'm working with clients, I ask them, based on what you know about the person now, would you ever have entered a relationship with them from the beginning? And that's often how you can pull in the emotional weight that that person's had on you. And if the answer is no, I would not have entered into the relationship now that I know who they really are, then the question is, why are you still in the relationship with that person? And that's easier said with people that are, romantic partners. It's a lot harder with family and friends that we've known for a very long time. But sometimes we can love people from a distance. Or let's say this is a very close family member that you see multiple times of the year, Christmas, Thanksgiving, times of the year like that. Maybe we can put some boundaries out there and say, I know that this person has a tendency to bring out the worst out of me. Maybe there's certain conversations I don't have with this person. Maybe there's certain information I don't give to this person. Because at the end of the day, when we talk about the language of manipulation, people that are manipulative they have often been that way since around 7 years old to 11 years old. This is a pattern of behavior that they have used throughout their life to survive, to get things for what they want from people. And it is often extremely difficult to get them to change. And I go back to the whole concept from the Let Them book. Let them. They're usually not going to change. All they're going to do is bring you into their madness. Next slide. So there's an entire relationship dysfunction illusion market out there that essentially brings in hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars a year. And one of the primary illusions that this is the primary relationship lie that is often never explained. And Ryan, what is the primary relationship lie?
The primary relationship lie, I would say, is that everything's okay and how you see me is how I am.
Hmm. Can you talk more about that?
I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in another slide, but the, we often, when we get into a relationship or we're interested in somebody, we think that how somebody is presenting themselves or what they're saying is the absolute truth and that everything will be okay. If somebody tells us they're in a good situation and they're a good person, we believe them. If there's something that needs to be worked on, but we feel that tug like we're uncomfortable, the main thing that we unfortunately often do is ignore that. And the lie is that everything's okay and this is good for me and I don't need to do anything about it. And because I am emotionally attached to somebody, I should move forward rather than just take a step and think, do I need to be in this situation? Or like you said earlier, if I knew the things that I know now, would I still be in that relationship or would I have started from the beginning? And if the answer is no, that's where we need to take a step back. We really need to think before we commit. Now, I'm going to be honest, and I want everyone to not misunderstand me. Meeting somebody for the first time, you may not be able to get all the stuff we're talking about out of them. It takes a little bit of time to get to really know somebody. But before we start committing ourselves and including ourselves in their life and making them a priority in ours, before we do that is where we want to really write down what we're seeing. We want to make sense of what is the reason I should and I want to commit to them. That's what Terrance and I are trying to help everyone with.
Yeah. Because here, you can go to the next slide. And the reason that this is so important is you can only have a healthy relation. You can only have a healthy relationship with healthy people. And that's one of the biggest lies out there is that you can have a healthy relationship with anyone. And it's just not true. It doesn't matter if you come to the relationship, in good faith, trying, as hard as you can. You took 10 or 20 different courses on attachments theory. You read a bunch of books. You tried to put your best foot forward. A good portion of the population, they do not have the emotional maturity to be a healthy relationship partner. And that's just romantic relationships. We're not
Mhm.
even talking about healthy environments at work, good friends, parents. Just if you understand, especially when people are under pressure, a lot of us revert to being around 7 to 12 years old. Like I've worked many criminal cases. I've worked tons of human trafficking cases. When push comes to shove, because I've seen people when they think they're going to lose their life, when people think they're going to go to prison, and then I've worked a bunch of white collar cases as well. So many times people revert back to being just kids again. And this behavior transfers right into their regular relationships. And you can ask yourself, how many of the people around you can take real criticism about their behavior? And if somebody cannot take basic criticism in the form of boundaries, I don't like the way you're treating me. I don't like to have this type of conversation the way you're having it. If there isn't a voluntary exchange, you have to ask yourself, is this person capable of having the relationship I want to have with that person? And if not, a lot of the times when we try to have a conversation with people who are not ready or healthy, all we do is hurt ourselves.
And it's not just with our romantic relationships or family. I mean, even people that we might traditionally think are smarter or above that. It happens in the academic world, it happens in the professional world. I've worked as an engineer with engineers who have higher degrees than me, who have been working much longer than me. And what often happens is their ego gets the best of them. So instead of looking at the facts and having a conversation about what's in front of them, they may resort to childish tactics because they simply never wanted to be wrong. And that is one of the first clues we see with people about if they're wrong or they made a mistake or something might make them feel uncomfortable. The first thing they do is resort to childish impulses to silence us. That's one of the signs of a problematic relationship, and it can help happen from anywhere, from anyone.
Absolutely. Next slide. So during the holiday seasons, there's five types of manipulative behaviors that often show up. The first one is instrumental use of emotion. So this is when somebody is using emotional displays to strategically influence, control, or exact a desired outcome rather than build a genuine connection. So this is where you might have an ex come out of nowhere and start love bombing. And they're trying to use that holiday season as well as that isolation to get closer to the individual. The next one is social comparison of norms. So this is shaping behavior and decisions based on comparing oneself to perceived social expectation or how others supposedly behave. You often see this during holiday season in work environments. So this is where maybe there's somebody on the team that's not doing a good job, or you have a weak manager. And now you, as the good employee, have to jump in and help. But it's not looked at as a voluntary thing. This is something you have to do. The next one is reciprocity of norm exploitation. This is often seen in family units. This is leveraging the expectation of returning favors to create obligation or compliance. So this is the act of gift giving in order to make sure that person owes you something in the future. Very careful. I used to tell people things that are free come with strings you don't see. So be very careful of free things from people in the form of, is this the type of person that will throw this in my face later on? The next one is intermediate reinforcement. So this is on again, off again behavior. Somebody gives you a lot of emotional attachment and then they give you none. It's like roller coastering. We often see this in the holiday season when somebody, there's people out there that don't want to be alone and they'll give somebody a ton of attention, get what they want from that person, and then you don't see them anymore. And the last one is relationship aggression. So this is inflicting harm through indirect social or emotional tactics such as gossiping or exclusion. Ryan, do you have a one out of this that hits you the most, that you see the most with your clients?
Reciprocity and relational aggression.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk
I
more
think
about that. But go ahead.
the hardest ones to deal with, the hardest ones to navigate, to figure out, to move through healthily, that it's not just making the decision, it's understanding it and using it in a way that moves us out of a bad situation, is when we're dealing with the people who are closest to us. It's always the hardest. The people that we see regularly, the people that we have a close attachment to, it's very difficult to navigate these. And that
Absolutely.
happens quite more often.
Yeah. It's hard.
So one of these, though, is here I am, surprise. It's the people who you haven't talked to in a while. You may or may not have been close to them, but sometime around the holidays, around a special day, maybe in the spirit of gift giving around Christmas, or being thankful for our friends and family around Thanksgiving, or perhaps, coming up on Valentine's Day, right? The whole commercial idea of let's celebrate love or relationships just today. It's the people who surprise you. So is it caution? Is it something we should be cautious of? Or is it an opportunity to connect with them? And I want to say, first and foremost, what Terrance and I are talking about is not to make us look at everyone around us with suspicion. It is simply, before we just start giving our time and energy to people and jumping into things, just take a step back to think about it. What is this person asking of me? It is very often that there's an opportunity for connection around the holidays when people remember those that they haven't been thankful for, people they haven't talked to, and that is quite normal. But the caution here is when somebody pops up surprise, wants to talk to us and starts asking us for things out of nowhere, usually out of a sense of guilt, guilt tripping. Well, it's the holiday season. Couldn't you be a little bit more generous? Hey, couldn't you just forgive me? And I'm all about forgiveness. I'm all about making amends with people, but we don't want to go above and beyond to the main detriment of ourselves. So this is something we should be careful of. This could be, like Terrance said, an ex popping up out of nowhere and texting us or calling us. It could be a family member. It could even be a coworker or somebody about work, which I'll talk about a little bit later, asking us to do stuff during the holiday season to sacrifice our time so that they can get off. We need to be very careful. And the main thing we should start asking ourselves is, what is this person asking of me? Are they simply asking to reconnect, or are they asking for me to start giving them something that I'm not comfortable with, that I wouldn't do for somebody I haven't talked to for 3 months, 6 months, 6 years? And the way they start out is they start out with normal conversation. And then there's a point at which they feel like you're comfortable in this conversation with them, like you're talking like pals or friends or lovers like you used to. Then they ask. And that's what we need to watch out for. That point right there. That's where we take a step back and go, hold on, but I haven't had this relationship with someone. Is this something that I would do for somebody who just popped in my life if it's not this person? And if the answer is no, then we might not want to do it and save ourselves the trouble.
Absolutely.
Something I talked about earlier that we're going to circle back to right now is called the crime of omission. Now, I, when we are dating somebody, when we are trying to meet somebody new, when we go into an interview for a potential new job, we all know that we put our best foot forward, right? We don't lead and say all of the problems I'm having in my life, all the problems that I would love if somebody could help solve for me. We don't do that. We lead with what is best for us. What is the best thing about us? We're smiling, we're happy, we're professional. And I want everyone to understand that as much as we do that, people do that too. So when we first meet somebody, or when we are getting to know somebody, or when somebody is trying to enter our lives, whether out of nowhere or on a natural progression, we need to understand what they're omitting. What are they leaving out? What are they not telling us? And in the form of romantic relationships, this could be something so simple as um, they don't have a stable living situation that they're going to ask you to help them with later on. They don't have a stable financial situation that they're going to ask you for help later on. In the terms of family, this can be used as a weapon towards us. And what I mean about that is the crime of omission looks like there is a wonderful holiday party with filled with people that you love and you want to see, and half of the people there are people that have hurt you that you never want to see again and cause your life chaos, that cause you pain, that when you leave that party, that gathering, it will be more stressful than it was useful to see the people who you care about. And the crime of omission is that you're going to be invited, but you're not going to be told details. You're not going to be told who's actually coming. You're not going to be told what's really going on. And that is the crime of omission, because the crime of omission can be used to manipulate you into agreeing to do something or go somewhere or join an event or a group where, had you known all of the information, you would have said no. And the reason that it's so slick and that it's so emotionally jarring is because the moment we get there, the moment we get to that party with, that friend, supposed friend or family member that scammed us or hurt us or did whatever number of things that we're not okay with, we want to leave. But now we're in this weird situation we'll talk about later on, the social norm situation where, well, you were invited and you accepted and now you're going to leave? Are you going to be that shallow? Hey, now it makes you look like the rude one. And all you wanted to do was save yourself the trouble and set some boundaries. This is the crime of omission. And one of the things we can do, which is very easy, is just ask for details. Just ask for details. If somebody's inviting us, ask what's going on. And to the best of our ability, let's figure out if we really want to go there or not. And at the end of the day, should something happen, hey, we've got to set a boundary. It's up to us on whether we want to stay or leave. And if we leave, there's a certain way we can do it, which we'll talk about later. Another tool, which some people, instead of doing the crime of omission, they might do spring on you last minute expectations. Why? Because then there's no time to explain things to you. Hey, we have a party tomorrow. Hey, we would like you to bring this, this, and this. Hey, bring a cake, bring dessert, bring your friends, show up at 6 p.m. Oh, you get off at work at 5:30? Come at 6 p.m. anyway. We don't have time to talk. Just come. Make sure you come. And that's just one example. The last minute expectations can be a problem because it means one of three things. It means you were never part of the original plan. You are an afterthought. Somebody is remembering because they forgot you, or they decided, well, we need more people. Why not invite them? You decide whether your personal boundaries include that you're not going to accept last minute expectations, last minute invites. This could be an hour, a day, 2 days, whatever works with your schedule. It could mean you weren't part of the original plan. It could also mean that the person is honestly just bad at organizing. And if this is somebody you know well, think about who they are. If they fall into that category, you might want to give them some leeway. But the third one, which is a little bit more dangerous and problematic, and it happens with the people who, I'm going to say this, we're not that close to, because I'm going to be honest, the people who are the closest to us, this is something we need to remember. The people closest to us are the people that we can have conversations with about touchy subjects. These are the people just outside of that conversational area that don't normally talk to us about problems that we have with each other and then solve them. And they use last minute expectations as that third category, which is they put you in a state of anxiety, of rushing, no time to think, and you're more likely or more inclined to just accept and go. And the reason we included this industrial thermostat is to remind ourselves that when it comes to last minute expectations, what people are usually doing is trying to get an emotional reaction out of us. They're trying to keep us disorganized to the point where we're going to agree without asking questions. This is that third category. It doesn't mean everything that's sprung on us last minute is this, but it could be. And the reason for this thermostat, if you notice, it's at 72 degrees Fahrenheit for our American friends. Sorry, I don't know the Celsius conversion off the top of my head. I think it's somewhere around 23 degrees Celsius, but it's set to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And the idea is people are going to get emotional reactions out of us. We don't want to be robots. I don't want to be a robot. I want to enjoy my life. But I need to be aware that there's a certain point, a certain maximum, where if people are getting that reaction out of me, they might be trying to get something out of me. And honestly, it's not healthy to go above that all the time. So I'm in control of my emotions. And if somebody is trying to get me to be too anxious or too rushed or too angry or feel too guilty about something that I really shouldn't feel guilty for, that's where we take a step back and remove ourselves. We don't need the heat. We don't need to get overheated about something that ultimately we do have control over. That is what the last minute expectations tool is used for quite often. Now, I think this is something that hits home for some of my clients and a lot of people that I work with, which is the idea of traditions over boundaries. If you are in a multicultural home, multi-religious home, multi-ethnic home, or perhaps you yourself don't like the traditions of your family of friends, not all of them, right? What often can happen is this is the way it's always been done. This is the family tradition. This is what we do. We are not going to change it. And where it causes a problem is where it don't care about your personal boundaries. I'm going to give you an example. I was watching an episode of the Steve Harvey show. And if you know about Steve Harvey, he lets people come on and ask questions. And a woman brought her own mother to her honeymoon, and her husband was not happy about it. There's one cultural norm versus her husband's cultural norm where this is weird and I don't like it. And in that situation, it was tradition over personal boundaries. So if it's something like that, or something similar where we've set a personal boundary and I don't want anyone to go past it. And the response is, this is tradition, this is the way it's always been, and we don't care about your personal boundary. What I want you to understand is if it's a realistic boundary, there isn't a reason to sacrifice your personal boundary, especially if it's for your safety. That is something we need to understand. A tool that people will use to get what they want is by falling back on the excuse of tradition to take the accountability off of themselves. Instead of, I'm the one overstepping your boundary and I'm the one doing this, but this is the tradition and this is what you should accept. And if anyone's telling you to accept something just because, and there's no explanation given, or because it's the way we've always done something and that's the way it's going to be, then we really need to think to ourselves, is this healthy for me going forward? And the reason we need to look out for it is because guess what? During the holiday seasons is where it shows up most because people are most likely to say or think to themselves, well, in this one case, I guess I shouldn't cause a problem and it's okay. I will let them walk over me because it's just one day a year. But every time we do that, we are training people not to respect our boundaries and we're telling us that we really don't have a boundary for them. So every time we start thinking this way, we want to tell ourselves, do I want to train them to keep putting me in this situation or do I want it to stop? And if the answer is that I want it to stop, then we need to hold firmly to our boundaries. Now, circling back again to something I mentioned earlier, the social construction of norms. There are many, but we just wanted to touch on three in this event. And Terrance, please feel free to add anything. I know I've been talking for a little bit, but
No problem.
one of them is politeness pressure. And whether it's tradition or something similar, it's the idea that during this time of year, you need to be extra generous or nice and gracious. And if you don't hold to our expectations, then you're ruining the holiday. And what it does is makes it easy for people to silence your boundaries, which is what I just talked about in traditions over boundaries. Making you want to or feel like you're pressured to tolerate disrespect, guilt, or intrusive behavior you would otherwise, any other time of the year, with strangers or even friends, say no thank you and walk away. Another social construction of norms is family obligation framing. This is the idea that whatever culture you're from, whatever family you're from, how the family works, says that you must sacrifice in a certain way for the family. You must leave your job in the middle of the day and risk getting fired because a family member needs a ride to work, just as an example.
Mm.
Or family comes first, meaning they want you to take them to their job, but they don't care that if you do that, you're going to lose your job. So it's not about sacrificing for the family or doing something good for the family. It is usually to the point where you will be unrealistically harmed and your boundaries will be ignored for no good reason other than family comes first. But, and I'm going to say this, there isn't necessarily something wrong with family comes first. But it becomes very tricky when everybody involved in this family does not agree and aren't that close to each other. That's where it gets difficult. And that's why if we are not extremely close and extremely loyal to begin with, but we're asking to sacrifice, every time you sacrifice something, it means I am cutting off an opportunity or a decision for myself, and I will be hurt so that I can provide something good for someone else. That's what sacrifice means. If you're being asked to do that and you do that after a certain number of times, whether it's 5, 10, 20, maybe it's 10 years, if you were getting rid of the good things in your life for good things for other people and you never knew why and you didn't agree with it, there's a certain point where that is not going to help you and you can't get that time back. You can't get that opportunity back. So we need to be very careful about, especially with family, being asked to do something that we don't understand and agree with. And the last one we wanted to touch on from this chart is gift giving as a moral test. True generosity does not expect something in return. True generosity. What people will often do is give you something nice, something maybe expensive, or require your participation specifically as a proof of love or commitment, which means where we generally might think traditionally gifts are given because I want to do it, not because anyone forced me to do it. I choose the gift. They don't choose what I give to them because that takes away the genuine nature of building a relationship with someone and showing that you love them. Hey, I got you this new phone so that you didn't have to spend your money because I know you're using a phone that's 15 years old and its buttons don't work and I wanted to make your life easier. Hey, I got this for you. We can't show that genuine type of love when it's expected of us in a certain way. And it becomes a moral test for some people where they turn this voluntary tradition, this good idea, this good, genuine, kind-hearted nature of giving as a moral obligation. Meaning, if you didn't give me a gift and you didn't give me what I wanted or expected, which includes spending just as much as I did on you, even though you didn't know what I was giving you. That means you're a bad person. That's what we mean as gift giving as a moral test. And we need to be very careful of that because true generosity does not require or expect anything in return. I do not count the number of times I might have done something that benefits Terrance and expect something in return. And he doesn't keep track of the number of times that he's helped me or given me gifts and expect something in return. We chalk it up to we'll never know what the score is, and it doesn't matter as long as both of us keep doing this for each other. And that's really what a good, healthy relationship is about.
Hmm.
Not keeping the score, not because we need to or don't want to. We don't keep the score because we know we're both doing what should be done for each other's benefit, not for our own benefit.
Hmm. Exactly. So we're coming to sort of the end of the presentation. We just have a couple more slides. And this is a phrase that one of the Patreon subscribers said is they keep hearing we're all family. And it's said in the context of exploitative relational aggression. And that's one of the main point for this entire presentation is that so many of us think that we're the only ones going through this. But as someone that does this for a living for over a decade, I come across very few healthy families. And if the first generation is healthy, that doesn't mean the relationship with the cousins is healthy. That doesn't mean the relationship that the person has with their employer is healthy. Very few people live this life truly unscathed, where they don't have to come face to face with a narcissist, a sociopath, all of the above. And it's it's really sad that a lot of people suffer in silence. They suffer in silence. And what is also happening is problematic people are getting better at being problematic people because they spend time learning from each other. A proven fact is when you put sociopaths and psychopaths in prison, they become better versions of a sociopath or a psychopath. And I mean a true one. And that's one of the issues we have is because of social media, because of all the connectivity we have, it leads to good and bad. And so these are the five ways that if you notice this pattern, you're probably going to have to speak up. And if for some reason you feel that you don't are not able to speak up, you're probably going to have to find someone to help. Whether that's a family member that has your back, maybe it's a preacher that works with you, someone. But these are essentially the five most common signs of exploitation in relationships, especially during the holiday season. First is strategic exclusion. Invitations are group chats or holiday plans, but for some reason you're left out. They don't tell you about it. Next one is social alliance manipulation. Individuals quietly recruit allies, siblings, in-laws, coworkers. You look up one day, and for some reason, it seems like you're one against five. That wasn't an accident. That was premeditated. Reputation undermining through concern. Negative information is shared covertly as worried or just being honest. But for some reason, when you're trying to be honest and say, hey, this isn't fair, then the stares change. It goes from concern to judgment to aggression. That lets you know that the situation was never fair from the beginning. The next one is emotional withholding as punishment. Coldness, silence, or reduced warmth is used as a coerced compliance. So people are only nice to you when you're the version of them that they want. When you're your authentic version, they don't want anything to do with you. And they're not going forward to produce a version of themselves that's also pleasing to you. So we don't have a reciprocity relationship. The other one is comparisons and status signaling. Achievement, gifts, or relationships or life milestones are subtly highlighted to provoke insecurity, reinforce hierarchy. It's the person that brags about their new house, their new cars. And it's one thing to be proud about your achievements, but on the other end, there is a level of tact and humility and empathy that has to be used as well. Knowing, especially in this year, 2025, you have record levels of unemployment. You have repossessions at levels we haven't seen since 2008, 2009. And for people to still brag, to still be shameless with their wealth, there's a level of empathy that they just don't have in their heart. But then on the flip side, let's say that you're financially secure, that you have a job, that you're doing the best you can, that you've lived a life of to the best of your ability, making good decisions. On the flip side, they can judge you for that and say, oh, you have all these nice things. You should share with me. It goes full way. What you look for is a lack of empathy and then a lack of the person showing responsibility and accountability for their own choices and putting that on another person. All signs. All right, Ryan, next slide. This is so important. And it's easy to say that's just how they are. But a lot of times our life won't change unless we change. Like I've been on Meetup for around a year. We've taken this group from 5 members to 9,700 members. We've taken the Patreon from 0 to 495. The YouTube is over 750. It's so often if we're waiting on people to find goodness in their heart, we might be out in the cold a very, very, very long time. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's your fault, but in all likelihood, it's probably going to be your responsibility to protect yourself. And I said this on Meetup. I've said this to clients. I've said this to victims. I've said this on the streets of Detroit, the streets of Chicago. It doesn't matter where. There's always going to be predators out there. If anything, you're just going to see more of them in the future because that's where we're headed. So that's how they are. There are predatory people out there. What we can do is just make sure that we're not, to the best of our ability, allowing ourselves to be a victim, to fall for their charms, to fall for their garbage, their BS. We go through this in nauseum on the Patreon. Also, the workbook. The workbook has so many different scenarios where it goes through all the usual ways of that we misunderstand value. We assume somebody's a good person, but they're not. So we want to highlight what has historically been those markers that we fail for, just so we can make sure we don't continue to fall for those same mistakes, for those same tricks. All right, Ryan, next slide. Bring us home.
The one-way friend. This isn't just friend in the normal sense of friend. This is also the people who aren't really supposed to be your friends, but are acting as your friends. And I'm going to give you an example, but first I want to talk about what's on the slide. The one who always asks for help, but never helps you. One-way expectation. I would like you to do something, and I know you're generous, and you usually say yes. Can you help me out? Thank you. But they're never available, never answer, always come up with excuses
Mm.
every single time when you need their help as well. This pops up around the holidays, especially because if you are the kind-hearted, generous, good-natured person who wants to do something good for the sake of being good, they know that that is the time you will answer more than any other time. And even if you're on the brink and you don't usually do good things for people, they'll come to you then. And the one who always asks if you need help, but when you say no, they scowl at you. Now you might scratch your head and think to yourself, that's not really a common thing, or that's maybe and what's the word, Terrance?
Normalized.
Counterintuitive.
Yeah, counter.
Counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive to what you might think because it's the opposite. But this is where I want to give you a very good example. Your coworkers are not necessarily your friends. Okay? So, what can often happen is, of course, I want to work in a work environment where I'm on good terms with my coworkers. Absolutely. I don't think anyone wants to go and work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week or more, depending on your work situation, with people you hate and don't get along with. But we have to understand that when it comes to the professional world, what we're seeing is not necessarily how people really are. So our coworker might always ask us for help, but never helps us because they're trying to make sure they look good all the time. And they take our hard work and our intelligence and what we can produce to make them look good. But on the flip side, this is where the counterintuitive now starts to make more sense. The one who is always asking to help you all the time, but when you say no, even in a polite manner, I appreciate your offer, but I can handle it and I don't need help on this. I'm good, thank you. And they scowl at you, what they're really looking for is one of two things. One, they want to they're thinking that their professional way of transacting with you is to do things good for you, and if you don't let them, then they can't manipulate you. That's number one. And number two, they might want to be looking to get their hands on anything and everything in the company to say, I worked on it, I worked on it, I worked on it. So it might not be about manipulating you, but it might be a way for them to look better to everyone else in the company. So when they're asking, hey, do you need help? I can help you, man. Hey, the holidays are coming up and I know there's a lot on your plate. Do you want me to help you with that spreadsheet? I know you only have a couple of days to do it. If you need any help, let me know. And you say, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Jane, whoever. I really appreciate you reaching out and asking if I need help, but I got it. If they don't like that, they're probably using it for something else. And that's the one-way friend. We need to be very careful because I have seen it multiple times and it took me a while to recognize it. Anyone who's kind-hearted, generous, good-natured, and isn't used to recognizing this will fall for it. And it happens around the holidays. People will offer to do us favors, but they don't like it when we say no because it means that they're not gaining something from it. It wasn't a display of true generosity. True generosity is giving something without expecting or necessitating anything in return. And that is a very quick way, if we're not experienced at seeing it, is putting it to that test. Were they expecting me to say yes? And did they not like my answer?
Absolutely.
In closing, right before we close, Terrance, is there anything you wanted to say?
Not really. I mean, we can get right into questions. I see there's a lot of questions there, so we
Wonderful.
can get right into that. We do appreciate everybody for attending this far. This is not, this is not our usual presentation. We usually keep way more just talking about relationships, um, sociopaths, narcissism, but it's just specific during the holiday season. There's so many people are being just preyed upon by these individuals, and we're not even talking about scammers. Ryan, two of my clients this morning, scams, man, scams. It's just, but the interesting thing about problematic people is, in general, they're not particularly creative. So if you catch one, you start noticing the pattern of all the other ones. It's like when I investigated like burglaries. After you do that for like 10 or after you do like 10 or 15 of these cases, you start noticing a pattern.
Yep.
So, you know, but let's keep it moving, okay?
We want thank you everyone for attending. We just have one more announcement before we get to the question and answer session.
Absolutely. So, anyone that's been here since February when we started, we said we are going to write a book. A lot of people have asked for it. So we wrote a profiling book for relationships, especially if someone doesn't know the signs of a quality man or the signs of a problematic guy. I used as much as my profiling experience, as well as Ryan has used a lot of his profiling experience as well. We put together this great book. It's in Amazon. It's trending real well. We appreciate everybody for purchasing it. Oh, people in the comments already say they bought the book. Yeah,
Thank you to
appreciate.
everyone who's bought it. And as always, especially if you're a current client or Patreon member, please, we welcome your feedback. We would love to have conversations with you about something we missed, something that we hadn't thought about, something that would really help you out, because this isn't the first one or the only thing that we're really trying to put out there. We have the book in color, right, Terrence? It's
Yep,
now in
both
color.
versions are in color. The
We
paper
also have a workbook, a hand workbook that you can go through, and I believe it's also on what is
Amazon.
it?
Yeah, it's on
Amazon, yeah, it's
Amazon.
on Amazon. So you can go through this and fill this out in a guide as you read chapter by chapter. And there's also the audio book, which yours truly did as a first take. So
Yeah,
please check them out.
yeah. We'll do a couple like of the workshops just on regular Meetup. I'm not a fan of the app. So like I use Meetup on the computer, but a lot of people say they have issues with Meetup on their phone. So a lot of like the workshops we're going to primarily use like Patreon and YouTube for because
Mm.
like Meetup is just not robust enough of an app. So many people have issues with it. And the only reason we still use it is because we have such a large following on this platform. But it's not good. Again, we have two meetups planned in January. If you've already taken a look, if not, go ahead and sign up for them. So we have two of them signed up in January. If you're not part of the YouTube or Patreon, please join. We have a lot more content on there, and it's a lot easier for us to take questions and stuff. Let's see what else we have. Me and Ryan are working on a book right now. Tentatively, 101 questions to ask before you get engaged. So it's going to be no matter, you know, man, woman, anything nowadays, where these are 101 questions that you really should ask somebody before you get in a relationship with them. And we should have that out. I know we're sending it to the editor sometime in the next couple of weeks, right, Ryan?
Yeah, sometime first or second week of January. And it's our goal is to really get this done, published by the end of January. We really want it out there before Valentine's Day.
Exactly. So what we looked at is 101 of the questions that I have a legal background as well as a criminal profiling background. And I spent 3 years working at a law firm that spent a lot of time on divorces. So I saw a bunch of the things that lead to divorce because we never get clarification on them from the beginning. A lot of people don't realize that the right relationship begins in the beginning. A lot of times we don't have the foundation of a healthy relationship and we just keep moving forward with it. So we want to know from the beginning, what are some of the expectations people have before I go too far in a relationship with that person. But we'll cover more of that on the Patreon, YouTube, and on our next event. All right, Ryan, we can go ahead and take this down and start answering questions.
I wanted to answer one question first, real quick, because it was related to the 101 questions tentative title. Um, Walter asked, would anyone pass 100 questions? And I wanted to just frame this in a different way. They're not pass fail questions. Some of them are where the way that somebody answers might tell you they pass it or they fail it. Hey, it's not a good idea. But what it really focuses on is not just the question. It is, why are we asking the question? What are we looking to get out of asking them that question? And there is some analysis of common answers or how to interpret some of the answers. Now, some of them that are not pass fail, hey, here is the right answer or a good answer, and here's a bad answer, is really how it compares to how you answer it. So some of them are not necessarily right or wrong. It's if you answer that question in a certain way and somebody answers it in a different way, can those answers be reconciled? Is it possible to move forward in a relationship? They're not just pass fail in the normal sense. And with that being said, Terrance and I are using questions that came out of conversations that we had with our own wives. Like, if I give this to my wife, because we've already been through these questions, we would pass, we would agree. And that's why we're married. So this is a process that Terrance and I have used and have helped others use to success. It is not simply a check mark yes, check mark no, sorry, you failed, next person. It is a tool to do two things: really start to understand the person in front of you, their conversation starters as well as questions. And two, get to know them enough to understand are our lives, the way we're planning them, going to converge together if we were to get married, or are they going to diverge and it's not helpful? It helps us make that decision early on before committing, but it also helps us get closer to them. That's the point of the book.
Absolutely. So, perfect example. I'm gonna put it in the chat right now. One of the questions is there a limit to how much you can profit off someone else's ignorance? So if somebody doesn't know any better and they're selling you a car, and you know that car is worth $1.2 million, which is becoming more and more common every day because more and more millennials are making a lot of money. And there are certain cars that are going through the roof right now as far as value goes.
Mhm.
Is there a moral obligation with knowledge? Or if somebody's going to sell me a Mercedes for 9 grand, but I know it's worth 1.1 million, is that ethical? So that's not a wrong or right question, but that's a question two people should know about each other before you enter a relationship.
Mhm.
Because there is a fairly large segment of the population that would think there's nothing wrong with that. If you don't know, oh well, too bad. So these are things you should know about people. And so they're not normal questions that you would see like on Chat GPT. It's a lot of those deeper questions that there's is not necessarily true or false, but two people should know their allegiances to the truth or honesty or just themselves before they enter a long-term relationship. So, with that said, Ryan, let's start answering questions. If people would like to come on and ask the question on live, you can just put your hand up, and we'll start making a line.
Oh,
If
I'm going to allow people to start their video as well. Please, we know that you might have your own sense of privacy on the internet. We totally respect that. We don't make anybody come off camera as of right now, but we would greatly appreciate it if we knew the person we were talking to. So you don't even have to have your real name in here. We don't need to know anything real about you, but we like to see a human face and know who we're talking to. So if you would give us the respect of doing that, we would really appreciate it.
okay, Andrea, do you want to go through the questions? I kind of have too many windows open right now. I don't know
I
if you're
have.
able to.
The
Or do you?
story of my life. Yes. I sure. The first question we have is from Brandon. What advice can you give when you find it hard to set and keep boundaries?
Yeah.
Brandon, are you still on?
Yeah.
Hey, Brandon.
Hey, Brian. So,
Sorry, now you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yep, I'm unmuted now.
okay, go ahead,
Wonderful.
Brandon.
So my thing is, at least with the person that I was with before, and they still message, even though I've stopped communicating with them about setting boundaries and trying to get them to understand that it's not a good situation. It was a bad idea to begin with. They were married. It was not a good idea. I realized that they were not good for me. They showed a lot of narcissistic behavior, and it took me a very long time for close people to tell me that I would need to figure that out on my own time. So it took me a long time. I figured it out, but now I can't seem to figure out why it is that they won't go away or that I can't move on because they won't move on.
Okay. So, I have a lot of experience telling people really bad information for themselves. So, like, I regularly told people, okay, this will be the last day you walk around free. You're going to prison for 30 or 40 years. So, I'm used to giving people really tough information. After you give the information to the person, it's up to them to deal with it. You've done your part. If you tell somebody you no longer want a relationship with them, your no needs to be no. You don't owe them any more talking. And especially if we're under the guise that you're dealing with a problematic person, what good will talking lead to?
It won't. I mean, continuing to have conversation isn't going to change her behavior, how she treats me
Yeah.
or her situation.
Yeah, like I look at it another way. Do we expect kindness from demons?
No,
Then why are we talking to demons? Because every word they say will likely be used for manipulation. So why are we even continuing the conversation? Like I've talked to a lot of pure sociopaths, like pure sociopaths, people that had no problem killing children. So even in general, the most vile people, they look at themselves as the hero in their own story. So when you're dealing with problematic people, the thing to understand is you're not looking at someone that's looking at reality the same way you're looking at reality. 2 plus 2 is 50 to that person. So you did your part. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Now you have to have the strength of your conviction and walk away. And the strongest thing you can do, and it's something that kept me alive because there was a number of times where I went on to scenes where I didn't have backup. I was young and foolish, and I literally had to talk myself away from violence, is be non-reactive. Her voice means nothing. The conversation means nothing. You have to do that because you have to protect yourself. And she has to truly be in your past.
You're right. She has to be, otherwise I'll never be able to move on.
No, and look at it as the way to look at it is every month, at least 2 or 3 days are going to be difficult. Every month, at least 2 or 3 days out of our months are going to be difficult. And how many difficult days are you going to have as long as you keep communicating with this person?
Every single day is going to be difficult because there isn't a day that isn't difficult.
Exactly. So you don't need this person in your life. And the other problem, Brandon, is the more we keep problematic people in our life, the more difficult we make it for healthy people to join us. Because that's a prerequisite. Truly healed and happy people spend their time hanging out with other truly happy and healed people. They don't play games. So the minute you fully decide to leave that person in the past, then you can walk towards your future. I tell this to women all the time. The main reason people can't find their happy ending is because you keep hanging out with the villain. The villain is still in your phone. He still has access to you. And when you get rid of one villain, you just bring another one into your house. You got to start profiling people before you give them access. And if you don't know how, then you come to somebody like me or you go to someone else that knows what problematic people look like from the beginning. But see, Brandon, you know that person's a problem.
I do, so I need to just block from all communication. But the last time I did that, we stopped speaking for a year, and I blocked. And she decided to send me a message under a fake number, and I didn't know, realize at the time. I don't respond to fake numbers anymore, text from numbers I don't know, and that's how we restarted communicating again. And that was my fault. I should have just said no, and I didn't. So that's me not having boundaries for myself.
I love how you're completely honest about the situation. But notice how you have the power because you said, I did, I did, I did. So notice that she has no real power in this scenario. And so this is what problematic people do. They boomerang to try to find the best, most empathetic person they can find. So once they use up, they're like a locust, they're like a parasitic organism. Once they use up all the nutrients in the area they're at, they circle back to the good people from their past and hope that they can suck up more of that person's goodness. So every time this person does that, it's just further truth of not just how empathetic you are, but of how vile this person is. So you gotta believe in yourself, and it sucks. It might be as soon as you see that phone call, you might have to jump down and give yourself some push-ups. You might have to hand that phone to one of your friends or someone else to do those calls. Hey, some of my clients, that's what happens. Their narcissistic ex calls them. They don't know what to do. They book a session with me. We'll hop on WhatsApp and I'll craft them exactly what to say. And if that person wants to cuss them out, they can cuss me out. I don't care. You ain't shooting at me, so I don't care. It's not the streets of Detroit. But see, that's why it's so important to have a community. The hardest thing is to fight alone. You don't have to fight alone. But a lot of times to get to the place that we want to be, we're going to have to elevate our life. Is that fair?
Yes, that's great advice. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man. Like I said, if you have any other questions or something, join the Patreon, send me a message, and I'll write an article about it, or I'll talk about it, because this is like waves on the beach. There will always be people that try to jump in line, that try to manipulate others. That's their MO. That's what they do. But just like there's people over there, there will always be people over here that says, you don't need that person in your life. I appreciate you, Brandon.
Thank you.
All right. Gail, Ryan, you can take this, and then after this, we'll take one of the questions we have.
Sounds good. Hi, Gail.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for this. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. You mentioned earlier, I think it was Terrance, that our world is becoming more inundated with these types of people. And I was just wondering, do you know the cause of the reason for that? I'm a mental health counselor, so I see an increase in this in my clients. And I'm just wondering, what's going on? Like, why is this happening? I guess is the bigger picture.
So, one of the two greatest impacts that lead to problematic behavior is relative deprivation and absolute deprivation. So, absolute deprivation means I don't have the money or ability to support myself. Everything around us has become more expensive, whether we talk about food, items, clothing, housing. It's becoming unbelievably expensive just for people to survive. And that's creating a lot of frustration, aggression in people, where they're upset that they can't change their situation, or they believe they can't change their situation. But then on the other end, we have relative deprivation, which is I feel like I don't have as much as other people. So on one end, we have people that can't afford their mortgage. On the other end, we have wealth that we have never seen in modern times. So I'm a big car guy. The amount of money someone needs to have to buy high-end cars now is unbelievable. Like my mom, she had a Corvette. She paid like 44 grand for a Corvette. The top of the line Corvette now is almost $300,000. All these things have become more and more expensive. And anyone that's on Threads, Instagram, Facebook, we are inundated with the top 1/100th of 1% flaunting their wealth casually. And it is extremely hard to be happy with our lives if we are constantly around people and items telling us that we're not doing a good job. I was trying to watch Amazon the other day. I'm paying for the service and I still have to watch ads. We're constantly having assaults on our prefrontal cortex. And that's one of the reasons that sociopathic behavior is starting to just really go through the roof. Is that if you want to be a scammer, if you want to be a sociopath, there's massive communities to teach you how to do it. Massive communities. And on the other end, if I want to be a good person, it almost feels like I'm punished for being a good person because it looks like the problematic people are the ones making all the money. And it's leading to a mental health crisis, the likes I've never seen in my lifetime. So me and Ryan are making a book called The Incel and the Wincel. People know what an incel is, but they don't know what a wincel is. So we're going to start talking about this concept that, especially like as a man myself, more and more men are leaving regular society. Now you have the men that are leaving regular society because, they're living in their parents' basements, they're playing video games all day. But then there's the other group that are doing really well. They're married or they want to be married. they have their life together, they're using AI responsibly, but they also see that the barometers of success being pushed by normal society is insane. And they're walking away as well. And that's leading to a massive shortage of, let's just say this, men in places that women are used to finding men at. So when people say, I can't find a guy, I can't find a guy, well, yeah, because he's gone. He More and more people are heading in another direction that's not being talked about. And me and Ryan will hope to have that book out sometime in March or April. Um, Ryan, anything else you want to add?
Just one small thing is it's not just the bombardment. It's honestly that this bombardment and the way that our social friendships, our economic situation is going, is that more and more people are not being taught or have a support system that allows them to kind of take a step back at life and think about who they are and who they want to be. Everything is a distraction. It's not just I don't have it, other people have it. I'm drowning in my financial situation. I'm drowning in the job market where I can't seem to find a job with a master's degree or a PhD, or I've been doing this for 20 years. Why is it so difficult? Or I got laid off right around the holidays and I've got a family to feed and everyone seems to be happy. It's also that we really don't have traditional communities and support systems that are widely available and helpful as they used to be, because more and more people are turning to what Terrance talked about just to try and save themselves. And I am not necessarily calling them bad people. I am being sympathetic and saying I understand that we're going to try as humans to survive as easily or as much as possible. And we're going to go to the easiest thing we can find in order to save ourselves from whatever situation we're in. But it really does help when we have a support system, family, friends, significant others, our religious congregation, our sports group that we meet with every week that tells us, hey, man, I know that's easy. I know it's easy to go down this route, but you really should, for your benefit in the long run, go down this route. But don't worry, you're not doing it alone. We're going to help you. So I think also a lack of support system and integrity and structure, even amongst friends, when that starts degrading is where we start moving more and more to what we're seeing now. And that's one of the biggest reasons why Terrance and I are all about not just finding the right relationship one-on-one with our family, but it's about finding a good community for us as well.
Absolutely. Hope that helped, Gail. I know it's tough out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, Ryan, you want to grab another
Yep,
question?
I have another window up to go through these questions.
I got it.
Okay. Cheryl asked, what is the safest, least drama-filled way to get away or end a relationship with or from these types of people? I've had some really terrible experiences. Cheryl, are you still on?
All right, let's just answer it then.
Okay. Um, so I really like to answer really personal questions with more information because it really does depend on the situation, whether this is a coworker, significant other, and how much they really know about you and how much they're involved. But since I don't have more context, I'm going to answer it in this way. Okay. The safest way is to, generally speaking, you can either tell somebody you're leaving, but if that is not a safe option, simply find another thing to tell them, another excuse, or don't tell them and block them. If they are not somebody you believe is actually going to physically come after you for any reason, you can simply tell them they're done, set the boundary, block them. And if they try and contact you, there are other methods of getting other people involved, whether it's a lawyer, police, or law enforcement, or something else. But really, the least drama-filled way is to make sure that they know that they are not going to have anything over you emotionally, manipulatively, anything like that, and you have boundaries. And if you stick to those boundaries, most people, most problematic people, they just want the easiest target. A criminal is going to choose the easiest target that gets them the most. So
Mhm.
when you are providing any sort of obstacle that keeps adding to it, only truly insane people are going to see this and keep coming after you until they're in jail or dead. Most problematic people at some point are going to say it's easier just to find somebody else to mess with.
Mhm. Yeah. I only thing I would add to it is, and this is one of the first things they taught me in my Homeland Security program, is to stop talking.
Mhm.
I can't stress this enough. Stop sharing information with people. You will see virtually no information about me on Facebook. Why? Because I don't have a healthy family unit. And I choose to speak to people who are healthy. And this is one of the hardest things that we have is there's going to be either discomfort from staying or discomfort from moving. The discomfort from moving is to align yourself with a community of people that are serious, they're reciprocal, they're caring, they're righteous, but that's difficult. That's difficult because it starts with us usually, and we probably have to break our patterns. Who we hang out with, who we communicate with, the nature of our conversations. One of the best things to do is stop telling our problems to people who do not have the ability to solve them. So if I have an accounting problem, I call my accountant. If I have a legal problem, I call my attorney. If I have a health related, workout issue, then I'm probably going to either call my doctor or get a personal trainer. But I do not use novice information. And I would recommend people, if you really want to live a good life, and this is one of the hugest differences I see between the quality of people's lives, stop treating novices like professionals. Go to people where if their information ends up being bad, there's a consequence. If my attorney gives me bad advice, that's malpractice. If my if I'm talking to a counselor, because I was I had a child death case years and years and years ago, and I had to go through counseling for it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you start doing some of these crimes, some of these crazy crimes in Detroit, you'll see everything. But I'm not talking to random people on the internet because random people on the internet can't help me. Especially when we're talking about real deep issues. You got to go to a professional. And a lot of times our significant others aren't trained for this, our parents aren't trained for this, our cousins aren't trained for this, our random friend aren't trained for this. You got to go to people that know. Because if not, likely we have the same issue. Because I see it on Meetup. I see people that are on their 300 RSVP and they still have the same problem they had 4 years ago when they got on this website. And that's tough. That's tough. And if say you have a professional and you're not getting results, go somewhere else. That's how it works. All right, Ryan, you want to go to the next one?
A Zoom user asked, should I send my 2-year-old grandson a gift even though I'm excluded from the family? I'm not invited to Christmas because of a lie that was created by a narcissist. Will they use sending a gift against me? I'm so tired of the emotional abuse. Um, One thing that I would expect from any narcissist or any problematic person, because I really don't want to be using labels, is a problematic person. If they don't like you and they can do something to hurt you, and they have a history of doing things to hurt you, such as getting you excluded based on a lie, then it is safe to assume that they will use whatever you're doing as a way to hurt you. That is a safe assumption. But, and I say this, is something that's very important. What type of relationship would you like to have with your grandson? If you do not have a relationship now, what is better? Trying to send something, and we never know the type of misunderstandings or lies that happen, but when they're an adult, it's completely possible that to have a conversation and show the proof that I have been trying to actually build a relationship with you for years, but I've been excluded, and there's a possibility for amends, or never sending anything because we're scared that it might be used against us. And then when they become an adult and they want to reach out to us, we don't have anything that we said, hey, I tried. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. All I'm saying is, what type of relationship would you like to have? And if you can't have it now, if it's possible to have one in the future, which one do you think they might appreciate more that you can make amends with? That's what we're going to do. Because if you don't send something, guess what? They can say, hey, your grandparent, your grandmother, your whatever, they didn't care about you enough. They didn't send you anything. And if you did something and they say that, well, it's another lie, but you have proof, right? That's the important thing, is what are you doing to try and build that relationship? And because you're not on, or you're not getting on camera, on, I don't have any other details, but make the best decision on what you think would be best for your grandson. That's really what it is. But no matter what you do, whether you send a gift, whether you don't send a gift, if this person has gotten you excluded by making lies, it is fair to assume that they may try and spin anything you do, good or otherwise, against you.
Very true. Andrea, can you give us another one? Just want to make sure that you're able to get yours out there.
Sure. Yes. We have, um, let's see, have either of you had real life experiences with a narcissist? And that question comes from Walter Rock.
Oh man, so many.
Terrance, much more than I, the nature of his work.
Uh, well, I mean, I worked with killers, like
Yeah.
real killers.
Right.
So, it's just, you know. So the price you pay for knowledge is to no longer have a sleepless night. Like I'm serious. I don't know if I've had a sleepless night where I actually can say like I slept perfectly good in like 10 years. But that's what happens when you deal with like death. So yeah, yeah, yeah. That's why
Um,
it's one of those things like I don't like the phrase narcissist because it puts all different categories of vile people into one label. Like I don't even know if you could call certain people human. Like you have to, and if you want to know what I'm talking about, all you have to do is go work child protective services in a place like Detroit. Because Detroit has one of the biggest human trafficking problems in the United States because it's so close to the Canadian border. Michigan and Ohio, also Texas, really bad human trafficking problem. So, work a job like where you're specialized dealing with like children and do that for like 2 years. And like when you start hearing the word narcissist and stuff, it's the word doesn't come close to like how bad people are. So there's amazingly great people in the world, and then there's people that are way worse than you can possibly imagine. So yeah, again,
I've dealt with, I think, only two that I truly believed were narcissists and not just self-centered or problematic people in my life, one of them being a family member. And somebody asked a question we might get to later on is like, what can you do about somebody in your life or your family who's a narcissist? Maybe they can never change. Or there was a statement of they'll never change. And I'm going to be real honest. Like, if we're talking about a legitimate medical diagnosis, which again, I'm not a medical professional, but if we're talking about legitimate medical diagnosis of narcissist or whatever, and somebody wants help and goes to a psychologist, psychiatrist, and knows the tendencies they have and makes an active effort to go against those, it is possible to have a healthy relationship with them. And I say this as somebody with a close family member, not my wife, but a close family member who has this. And I struggled to have a good relationship with them for most of my life until they decided that they were going to put in the work. And I am happy with my relationship with them. And there are certain boundaries that we both had agreed upon to make sure that we wouldn't, push things too far with each other. Because, family, we can really push each other's buttons easily. And for the last, what, 8 years or so, maybe 10 years, it's, thank God it's been wonderful and I want them in my life. That's not always the case, but when we are looking to keep somebody in our life that may be a legitimate narcissist or a problematic person, where most people tend to fall in that trap is hoping or believing that somebody will change if we give them a reason to. And there is nothing that is going to make them do it unless they decide that no matter what, they need to do it, and you can't make them. They have to decide that. And only if and only if they have done that work and come to you healed, do you now accept them. That
exactly.
is it. Now, as for, I've also dealt with very problematic people, but especially a narcissist in college. And all I'm going to say is, especially with narcissists, self-centered people, people with a huge ego, one of the worst things that can happen to them is a ruined reputation.
Hmm.
And the way that I dealt with it was making the person believe that no matter what, there is no way they're going to get away with continuing to mess with me.
Yeah, I just want to jump in. That's actually the biggest problem that people often have is they don't have situational awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So, like when I'm walking around, I'm constantly aware of my environment because if I didn't have that skill earlier in life, I would have been killed a long time ago. Same thing with my wife. Same thing with anyone that comes from a violent background. One of the best examples I can recall is there was a woman from Sudan who lived in like one of the most dangerous parts of Detroit, but nobody messed with her because she had amazing situational awareness. Kind of like one of those rules in the hood where if women and children are no longer on the street, if you're smart, you get off the street because that's a sign that violence is about to take part. But when I get to situational awareness, one of the things that problematic people like sociopaths and narcissists notice is they notice what you don't notice. So if I'm constantly sending this person an email about interactions I've had with this person, you're letting the individual know you're watching them. And this is because especially my clients that are in corporate America breeds narcissism. It's part of the game. But you usually don't mess with someone who has a massive written trail of your behavior because this person is letting you know that they're watching you, they're evaluating you, and the charm is stuff isn't working. And so those are usually the individuals that don't have as many problems. Now there's always the person that's so narcissistic that they're gonna just push it all the way. But you know, that's one of the traits of it. They don't have. There's a lack of empathy, but there's also a lack of empathy for themselves. That's why they get caught.
Hmm.
Self-destructive behavior. But all right, let's go ahead and keep it moving. All right, and if
Okay.
nobody has their hands up, Andrea, what should we go with next?
Sure. How about how can you find a way to remove narcissistic narcissistic people from your life?
So one of the, and this is a tough thing that people have to realize. It's really hard to notice problematic people when our life isn't stable. You need a life of homeostasis. So when I have, and it's we covered in the workbook, but I also cover it with every client I have. I want them to give me a list of 50, if you can say, give me a list of 50 problems in your life. Just give me a list of 50 problems outside of the narcissist or whatever. And what we notice is as we fix those problems, as we create the life that someone wants, it's easier to notice when somebody from the outside is disrupting our peace. If our room is junky and somebody throws trash on the ground, well, crap, you can't see it because the room's already junky. But if your room is clean and somebody throws trash on the ground, you're like, hey, you're the one messing it up. So as you create a life that you're proud of, and the way you do it is imagine somebody wrote an auto, imagine somebody read an autobiography about you. What would you want in it? And whatever you want in that autobiography, start living that way. I don't care how old you are. There's so many individuals that have massive breakthroughs and they're 72, 74 years old. And that's how you do it. You start creating a life on your terms that you're proud of to the best of your ability, absent of propaganda, absent of manipulation, absent of what strangers are telling you should want. And you start moving your life intentionally in a direction. And then it starts getting easy noticing when somebody's trying to roadblock you. Anything you want to add to that, Ryan?
Not at all. Well said.
Appreciate you.
Regina, you have the next question in our queue and your hand is raised.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Thanks for doing this. So my question is, how can we balance asking others about what's really going on without oversharing of ourselves?
Can I take
Terrance,
this
would you
right
take that
quick?
first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I love to do is I ask indirect consequence questions to people. So for instance, uh, the movie. So there's a movie, Weapons, or whatever movie. I want to get a baseline of things me and that person have in common. And then I want to ask them things about that movie or any character. Like, what is an example of good character that you've seen in a movie?
Are you
What?
asking me?
No, I'm talking
Oh,
about
just in
asking other
general.
people in
Oh,
general.
oh, okay.
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 So I want someone to tell me what is an example of goodness. And then I want to know, give me an example of a villain type that you see in real life. I use movies all the time because people love movies, but movies often start telling people their their value system. So for instance, when I'm profiling a guy, I'll ask him, give me some of the most influential books you've ever read. Okay. And why? What were some of the lessons that you took from that book? So I read a lot. So there's like 5 to 10 books that young men will constantly come up with. Man, I won't just say young men, I'll just say men of all ages. And I'll put them in the Patreon link. But I want to know what they got from that book. So a perfect example is this is one of the most famous books of all time, As a Man Thinketh. If you go on Amazon right now, it's probably the number one or number two as far as most downloaded or bought books about how men think that men actually read. So this book is about personal accountability in that the way a man thinks about his circumstances will often give light to how he's able to succeed in life. And his thoughts are going to give rise to how successful he's likely going to be. If he blames everything for his problems, good luck trying to build real success from that. So this is one of the books, especially with my young male clients, we go from beginning to end, every chapter. And I want to know what he pulls from those chapters. I want to know his influences. Another question to ask somebody is, when was the last time a friend truly disappointed you? Because I don't, I want to know how someone views the world. And it's very easy in general, for men to get a feeling on other men because we ask very strict, factual questions that create an image of this person's character and who he's supposed to be. So now, later on, I need to be able to compare the barometer of who you say you are with who you are. And if there's a contradiction, you probably lied to me in the beginning. And if you lied to me, cool, you're gone. I'm not dealing with you anymore.
So, quick question about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I were to ask that question, when was the last time a friend truly disappointed you? Then I would expect or anticipate that that question would be given to me. And the problem is that narcissists or vile, not human people, what they do with those answers is they later use them as ammunition. And it can be, just it can be used for something as serious as creating cognitive dissonance for yourself. And so I find that I want to ask those questions, but a lot of times I don't think it's safe to answer the same questions simply because I know how it can possibly be used later. Does that make sense?
Sort of, but this is the thing. I don't talk to problematic men. So like if somebody throws back information in my face later on, then if the purpose of dating was to get to know this person, now I got to know this person. Bye.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah, so like you got the info. So if we're having a righteous, honest conversation about values, principles, and all these things, and the person later on shows that they're not who they say they are, well, the process of mate selection worked. They're full of crap. Now, the problem is if I keep finding people like this, then this is a sign that I'm attracted to problematic people. And then we have to look deep and figure out what needs to be healed. Because
right,
what often happens is we keep dating the same people over and over and over again.
right. Yes, yes, I did that for many, many years. And then I have spent many, many years working on the healing portion. So what I find now is that when I potentially go out on a date, I'm already on guard before I even get there. So
Yeah.
what I want is to be able to show up and just be myself. But I feel like I'm showing up with a sword and a shield.
Hmm.
And I don't want to have to do that. But I feel like I've been trained to do that. And now I'm very good at that. And so I don't know how to balance that.
Okay. And Ryan, if I take this for a little bit, Ryan, because I can take
I,
it.
I
Okay.
don't mind.
So first thing I'm going to ask you, what is the purpose of dating for you?
Oh, well, at this point, I've kind of put that on hold. I'm have other things going on, and that requires too much energy.
Hmm.
So I just can, so at this time, I'm just continuing to gather information, focus on healing. There's even in this session, I've learned a lot
Hmm.
that came into light that I thought, oh wow, yeah, I didn't really think of that. So I'm still gathering information. So I don't know if I don't really
Yeah.
want to date at this time.
Yeah, perfect. So the other question I'm going to ask you, and this is extremely important because either women see this or they don't. Do you know what a husband looks like?
No.
And that's the problem. You don't know what a husband looks like. So, and I want to be clear about this. The women that are on the other side know what a husband looks like. And it's very hard to pick up later on if someone never taught you. Because me and Ryan and married men, we can pick a husband very quickly. It's not hard because the guy's life is headed into the realm of taking care of a family and even greater taking care of a community. So his life is aligned with that goal. When I'm talking to a man who's perpetrating, he his life will not be aligned. There will be portions of it that don't make any sense. So for instance, in general, people don't go looking for long-term commitments at bars. They don't go to clubs. Their husbands and boyfriends move very, very differently. Now, what often happens is you'll have, especially in 2025, more and more young men, older men, blah, 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 they're getting bored with simple spending money, consumerism, pretending to have fun at four-star restaurants where the food really is the quality of a three-star restaurant 10 years ago. More
Mhm.
and more people I know are getting married. And I'm only around married people. But the hard part is it's a strict line. Like in general, married men don't hang out with single men. And married women usually, and I'm not, I don't understand why, but I have found very little resources teaching women how married men think or where to find them. I literally found this out back early last year when people started asking me to write my book. So like my book, How to Choose a Man, I lay out all the steps that if I had a daughter, I would have gave her about profiling men. But if you real like, it's so hard to catch up later. It's so hard because you have to, it really usually takes a man to read another man, unless you have that skill of discernment. So a lot of my clients, they'll say, "What do you think of this guy?" And I'll tell them exactly what's going on. And then we find out 2 or 3 months later that I was right because there's this pattern over and over again. But I think it starts with learning about men so they're not scary. So like my mom does extremely well. She knows how to talk to men, but my mom grew up in Detroit. She wasn't scared, but she also can see people's nature. And one of the problems is if we don't have discernment, discernment is what we need. So we see what's in front of us. So when I'm walking around, I can see a dangerous person usually because that person carries himself differently. I can actually on the Patreon, I can do a video response because there's a lot of studies done about sociopaths and narcissists that they can tell a victim by the way they walk, by the way they interact, that by how uncomfortable they look. And that's where it comes from. So I can, if you hop on the Patreon, I'll put some resources on there. But where it starts is learning about male behavior. Because when you start learning, again, men are simple. Like that whole thing, men are dogs. I'm like, yeah, men are pretty much dogs. I hunted them for 10 years.
Hmm?
And but I mean that in the best kind of way, as
I
their
cannot hear
behavior
you.
is very predictable. They're very predictable. So,
Thank you.
yep, you're welcome. All right, Ryan. I know I took a while on that one. You can take the next one, okay?
No, no worries, man.